Hello, my name is Noni Nurkasana. Name 196121157. I will explain about page 92 until 96. I will start. The hypothesis in quantitative research. The alternative hypothesis. An example of an alternative hypothesis is children taught by individual instruction will exhibit less mastery of mathematical concept than those taught by group instruction. Posit a relationship between variables and therefore is not a null hypothesis. The recension of a null hypothesis is not positive evidence that the null hypothesis is true. It indicates that the evidence is insufficient and that the null hypothesis. Testing the hypothesis. Hypothesis must be testable. Hypothesis testing involves the following steps. 1. State in operational trap the relationship that should be observed if the research hypothesis is true. 2. State the null hypothesis. 3. Select a research method that will enable the hypothesized relationship to be observed. 4. Gather the empirical data and select and calculate appropriate described statistics for this data. 5. Calculate inferential statistics to determine the probability that your obtained result could have occurred by chance when the null hypothesis is true. And then, if the probability of the observed finding being due to chance is very small. Classroom example of testing a hypothesis. First, the deduced implication is stated as following. Teacher positive comment on studied papers during a specific unit will result in higher score of the end of unit test for the student compared with student who receive no comment. Second, for statistical testing, the research hypothesis must be transformed into a null hypothesis. Third, after getting permission from parents or guardians for the children to participate, the teacher will select students to be randomly assigned to the experimental and control group. Fourth, after completing the specific unit, the teacher would administer a common end of unit test to both group and derive average achievement score of the test for each group. And then inferential statistics can then be used to indicate whether any difference in mean achievement score is real or is likely to be merely a function of chance. The quantitative research plan. First, problem. Problem is a quantitative problem asked about the relationship between specific variable, rationale for the study, and a brief description of the background of the problem in theory. Second, methodology. Explain how you will conduct the study. Include the proposed research design, the population of corner, the sampling procedure, the measure instrument, and any other information relevant to the conduct of the study. Third, hypothesis. A quantitative question is followed by a concise statement of the research hypothesis. Provide optional definition of the variables. And then data analysis. Indicate how you will analyze the data to test the hypothesis and or answer the research question.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Yuama, and here I will continue this material. Most of the disadvantages relate to the problem of validity of self-report investigators depends in part on the respondents being able to read and understand them, the item. Their understanding of themselves and especially their willingness to give frank and honest answer. Projective personality assessment. Projective technique, a measurement in which an individual is asked to respond to an ambiguous or unstructured stimulus on the basis of the subject's interpretation of the stimulus and his or the response. The exam attempts to construct a comprehensive picture of the individual personality structure. They are not frequently used in educational research because of the necessity of specialist training for administration and scrolling and the expense involved in individual administration. Furthermore, many research question their validity primarily because of the complex scrolling. Individuals ask where they see their response are scrolling according to whether they use the whole or only one part of the input or if form or color were used in structure the response, whether movement is suggested and other aspects. In the that the response is shown a series of pictures varying in the extent of structure and ambiguity and asked to make up a story about each one. Scales. Scales are used to measurement attitude, value, opinion, and other characteristics that are not easily measured by tests or other measure instruments. A scale is a set of category or numeric value assigned to individuals, objects, or behaviors for the purpose of measure variable. Attitude scale. An attitude may be defined as a positive or negative effect toward a particular group, institution, concept, or social object. The measurement of attitude presumes the ability to place individuals along a continuum of favorableness and unfavorableness toward the object. If researchers cannot look at an exercise attitude scale on their topic of interest, they must develop their own scales for measuring attitude. Likert scales method of summative rating. The Likert scale, named for Francis Likert who developed it, is one of the most widely used techniques of measuring attitude. A Likert scale assesses attitude toward a topic by presenting a set of statements about the topic and asking respondents to indicate for each whether they strongly agree, or indicate disagree, or strongly disagree. The variable agree-disagree response are assigned a numeric value, and the total scale score is found by summing the numeric response given to each item. This total score assesses the individual attitude toward the topic. A Likert scale is constructed by assembling a large number of statements about an object, approximately half of which express a clearly favorable attitude and half of which a clearly unfavorable. Neutral items are not used in a Likert scale. It is important that these statements constitute a representative sample of all the possible opinions or attitudes about the object. It may be helpful to think of all the subtopics relating to the attitude object and then write items on each subtopic. To generate the diverse collection of terms, the research may find it helpful to ask people who are commonly expect having knowledge about a definite attitude toward the particular object to write a number of positive and negative statements. Editorial writing about the object are also good source of potential statement for an attitude scale. Figure 8.1 shows item for a Likert scale designed to measure attitudes toward capital punishment. There has been some question regarding whether the indicated opinions should be included in a Likert scale. The sum of the weights of all the items checked by the subject is the individual's total score. Let us consider an example of scoring a Likert scale by looking at just the first six statements of the scale shown in figure 8.1. Item analysis. After administering the attitude scale to a preliminary group of response, the research does an item analysis to identify the best functioning item. The item discrimination index shows the extent to which each item discriminates among the response in the same way as the total score discriminates. The item discrimination index is calculated by correlating item score with total scale score, and produced usually done by computer. If hex score on an individual item have hex scores and if low score on this item have low total score, then the item is discriminating in the same way as the total score. To be useful, an isolated correlate at least items that have very low correlation of negative correlation with the total score should be eliminated because they are not mentioning the same thing as the total scale and hence are not contributing to the measurement of the attitude. The researcher will want to examine those items that are found to be not discriminating. The item may be ambiguous or double-barreled, or they may be factual statements not really expressing feeling about the object. Revising these items may make them usable. The item analysis also showing the presenting of response choosing is of the 5 opinion and the mean and standard deviation for each item. Items on which response are spent out among the opinion are preferred. Thus, if most representing chose only one or two of the option, the item should be removed or eliminated. After selecting the most useful item and indicated by the item analysis, the researcher should then try out the traceable scale with a different group of subjects and again check the item for discriminate or variable validity. Validity concurs the extent to which the scale really measures to attitude concerning of interest. It is often difficult to locate criteria to be useful in obtaining evidence for the validity of attitude scale. This product is not often used because it is often difficult to determine what behavior would be the best correlation for the attitude and also because it is expensive. Another method of assessing validity is to correlate score on the attitude scale with those obtained on another attitude scale measuring the same construct and whose validity is well established. The best index to use for an attitude scale is coefficient alpha, which provides a measure of the extent to which all the items are positively intercorrelated. and working together to measure one train of characteristic. Bipolar adjective scales. The bipolar adjective scale presents a responding with a list of adjectives that have bipolar or opposite meanings. Respondents are asked to place a check mark and one of the 7 points in the scale between the two opposite adjectives to indicate the degree to which the adjective represents the attitude toward an object, group, or concept. Figure 8.2 shows a bipolar adjective scale designed to measure attitude towards school. Notice that the response takes the extreme right position of for item A and the extreme left position for item D. This is done to minimize a response set or a tendency for favor certain position in a list of opinion. 7 represents the most positive and 1 the least positive response on each scale. The weak one is item would they be summed and average. In figure 8.2, item weak are 7 plus 6 plus 6 plus 7 plus 3 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4 plus 5 equal 51, 9 equal 5.67. The score of 5.67 indicate a very positive attitude towards school. The bipolar adjective scale is a very flexible approach to measuring attitude. A researcher can use it to investigate attitude toward a concept, person, or activity in a setting. It is much easier and less time consuming to construct than a like scale. Instead of having to come up with approximately 20 statements, you need only select 4 to 8 adjective pairs. If one has a problem with this task, there are references such as Osgood, Suji, and Tenenbaum then proving lists of bipolar adjectives. It is probably better, however, to think of adjective pairs that are especially relevant the one's own project. Rating scales. Rating scale present a number of statements about a behavior, an activity, or a phenomenon with a accompanying scale of categories. The teacher would indicate his or her assessment of the student characteristic, leadership behavior by checking a point on a continuum or choosing a response category. I think enough, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello, my name is Ivy Mufdana Nabila Farida. I'm from Group 10, NIM 1961211166, halaman 214 sampai 220. I will presentation for rating scales. Rating scales present a number of statements about a behavior, an activity, or a phoneme with accompanying scales of category. Observation of response are asked to indicate their assessment or judgment about the behavior or activity on the rating scale. For example, a teacher may be asked to rate the leadership ability of a student. The teacher would indicate his or her assessment of the student characteristic leadership behavior by checking a point on a continuum of or causing a response category. It is assumed that readers are familiar with the behavior the R as assets future Act 3 in is an example of a graphic scale. The reader can check any point on the continuous line graphic scale, usually assign numeric values to the description point. Such scales are referred to as numeric rating scales. The next category scales. The category scale consists of a number of categories that are arranged in an ordered scale. 5 to 7 categories are most frequently used. The reader picks the one that's best category. The behavior of the person being rated. Sports, a student's reliability are being rated, and one of the categories being rated is creative. Next, comparative rating scales. In comparative rating scales, in contrast, raters are introduced to make their judgment with direct reference to the position of others with whom the individual may be compared. The positions on the rating scale are defined in terms of a given population with no characteristic. A comparative rating scale is shown in figure. Such a scale may be used in selecting applicants for admission to graduate school. Another type of error is the generosity error, which refers to the tendency for research to give subjects the benefits of any doubt. When readers are not sure, they tend to rate people favorably. In contrast, the error of safety is a tendency to rate all individuals too low and all characteristics. Another cause of error is the error of central tendency, which refers to the tendency to avoid the either extreme and to rate all individuals in the middle of the scale. The next, direct observation. The current chapter focuses on observation in qualitative research, where the product of using the various observation instruments is numbered. The purpose of direct observation is to determine the extent to which a particular behavior is present. The behavior observed in qualitative studies may be categorized as high influence and low influence. High influence behaviors such as teacher warmth or creativity require more judgment on the part of the observer. Low influence behavior require less judgment by the observer. There are 5 important preliminary steps to take in preparing for qualitative research observation. 1. Silence the aspect of behavior to be observed. 2. Carefully dive the behavior failing within a chosen category. 3. Be develop a system for qualitative observation. 4. Develop specific production for record the behavior. 5. Train the people who will care of the observation. The next device for recording observation. 1. Checklist. The simple device uses a checklist which presents a list of the behavior that are to be observed. 2. Rating scales. Rating scales discussed previously are often used by observers to indicate their evaluation of a observation behavior of activity. Typical rating scale consists of 0 to 5 point of category. 3. Coding system. Coding systems are used in observation study to facilitate the category and counting of specific predetermined behavior as their core. Two kinds of coding systems are typically used by research: sync coding and time coding. Next, advantages and disadvantages of direct observation. The most obvious advantage of systematic observation is that it provides a record of the actual behavior occurs. The main disadvantage of systematic observation is the expense. Observations are more costly because of the require of trainers. Validity and reliability of direct observation. Observation must be aware of the cause of bias, the effect, validity. Observer bias and observer effect. Observer bias occurs when the observer's own perception, beliefs, and biases influence the way he or she observes and interprets the situation. Having more than one person make independent observation helps to detect the presence of bias. Observer effect occurs when people paying observation behave differently just because they are paying observation. The next contrived observation. In contrived observation, the results are for the observation of subjects in simulation of real-life students. The circumstances have been arranged so that the desired behavior are allocated. One form of contrived observation in the situation test. Data collection in qualitative research. Qualitative research also have a number of data gathering tools available for their investigation. The most widely used tools in qualitative research are interviews, document analysis, and observation. Thank you very much for group presentation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.